multiplied it by the total sales number, right, for Q3. So if my sales were 451,185 times 0.62, I would have gotten 279,735. 451,185, I would have gotten 27,071, and so on and so forth. Did everybody do that? I haven't gone back in because the assignment was just due the other day. Yes? Okay. So now you have your penetration for Q3 and you have your penetration for Q4. Looking at it and kind of thinking about all the conversations from last week when Pam and Callie were here, what did you notice pretty quickly when you started looking at some of these numbers here? What kind of stood out to you? Or what were some of the things that maybe they brought up in the conversation that you're already thinking about as you start? Because one of the next things your steps is going to be is start figuring out where you're going to plan your business for fall 2020. And we're going to go through all of that today. We're going to go through how do you plan your sales? And then the other thing we're going to start to do is look at our inventories. Okay? But the sales forecast always comes first. But even just looking at this, what does it tell you? What happened between Q3 and Q4 in some of those classifications? Yes?
I noticed there was an obvious increase from October to December, but that was because of their holiday sales.
Mm-hmm.
About that, not that they start putting stuff out for the holidays in October.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely right. So one of the things you guys are going to have to determine, based upon what she said around possible potential late deliveries this year, how am I going to plan my inventories when we get into these peak months to ensure that I have the inventory on the selling floor? I think you guys are already hearing and probably seeing there's a lot of announcements coming out because of the virus, delays, challenges with travel. I don't know if anybody has read how Amazon right now is having a tough time fulfilling their Prime orders simply because of the fact that more people are staying at home and they don't have enough people at this point in time, because it's not a peak season, not a peak time for them, to be able to deliver the product to the customers. So they're actually experiencing some delays simply because of what's going on right now. And what's the other concern? When more people stay at home, they're not doing what? Shopping. That can affect them, right? To a certain extent. Okay? But when you start looking at your penetrations from here to here, and some of these classifications, where could there be additional opportunity as we start thinking about Q4?
Didn't she say that the only thing that they sell online was Lowe's and Season?
Right. The only thing that they have online is their scents. So yes, there's a potential to do more online opportunities there. But guys, when you look at the numbers, look at the penetration in Q3 and look at the penetration in Q4. What stands out? Where was there a shift? Okay, apparel went what? Down. And what went up? Okay. So one of the things we don't know to a certain extent, but I think maybe when we start looking at some of these other parameters that I'm going to give to you guys, you can see accessories, and I owe you the additional here. So within accessories, you have handbags, you have jewelry, you have the kids piece of the business. I actually went to go visit the store last Thursday. All those little keychain rings that she was talking about, those are all considered part of her accessories piece of the business, which kind of makes sense, right? That you would actually see a lift in some of those categories as we get closer to Q4. Now, the tougher thing, okay, so let's talk about other components. I need you guys to start thinking about when we were in buying one. These are the markdown rates. These are the turns. These are the IMU, and this is the gross margin. Tell me something about turn. What does turn mean? Say it out loud. How fast you're going through your inventory, right? How well the customer's responding, right? Now, do you want a high turn or a low turn? High turn, but what? Can you possibly be too high that you actually turn yourself out of business? You can. So, when we look at the turns, apparel turned at a 2, shoes turned at a 1.8, accessories turned at a 4, and home turned at a 2.25. So when we look at that, what could that possibly tell you? If you think about it, in a year, or in a season, in a 6-month season, think about these turns that you're seeing here. Which one stands out to you the most? Accessories. So if you look at the other businesses in comparison, there's a very good possibility I didn't have enough inventory to do the sales. I probably left some sales on the table because I turned too quick. Another good indicator of turning something too quick is look at my markdown rate. Compared to the other departments, I only had a 5% markdown rate. So I was marking down minimal product because I was turning too fast. So there could be an opportunity there, right? It kind of stands out right there, okay? Some of the other ones are kind of standard turns based upon the classifications of business that they have, right? Anything else that's kind of stands out to you that's like a little bit of puzzling to say? I don't know. When you think about these numbers and you see here, what else do you think? Who's gone into the store? So they definitely moved a lot of product from Wimberley into this particular store location. What do they have a lot of? Furniture, a lot of home. They actually had a lot of it. So you can definitely tell from the store closure, they took that inventory, which rightfully so, and they put it into this location. So because of that, this home number can actually might actually be higher than what it was previously, because now I actually do have more inventory than I did last year, which they do, especially in that classification of business. Did you guys look at the price points within the store? Just overall. Expensive. Okay. So what did you think was expensive? I know what I thought was expensive.
Everything.
You thought everything was?
I mean, yeah. I mean, but that's just like kind of what the story is, though. But for college kids, like everything was expensive.
Okay. All right.
The jewelry was expensive, and it wasn't even like sterling silver or anything like that. That has special where you could get a better price at Pandora.
Okay.
Or sterling silver that's not going
Right.
to rust or anything.
Okay. What was the one comment that Pam and Callie made about what they're trying to do? What are they trying to shift more towards? Shift towards more accessories, but made in the, right. So made in the USA. When it's made in the USA, it's going to become more expensive. They most likely have I know exactly what you're talking about. I looked at some of the jewelry and I was like, but because most likely it's handmade, it's made here in the United States, as a result of that, it's going to be priced a little bit higher, because even then she's probably not making the markup that she needs to in the accessories piece, because it is made in the United States. Okay? I thought definitely looking at their home price points, I thought they were high. For a pillow, for a candle, for some of those things, I was like, hey, I can go to Home Goods, man. I can get some good stuff there too, right? So the other thing it's going to be very important for you guys to look at when you start thinking about where your opportunity is going to lie. So I want to talk through this a little bit more. Based upon everything that we talked about, okay, your next step is going to be forecasting your sales for fall of 2020, okay? You're going to have to take into account what happened last year in some of these classifications, what are some of the things that they shared and they talked about, and now determine how am I going to plan their business for fall, okay? You're going to make assumptions with the information that you do know, okay? So once you do that, you'll then be able to look and say, okay, if I know this number, am I going to keep these penetrations the same as I did last year by month? Or are there things that I'm going to do a little bit differently, because I think there's opportunities based upon trends, based upon looking at Fashion Snoops about what's going on? Okay? So your first step always is going to be forecasting your sales. You guys now have the ability to do that, is forecast your sales. Okay? You can make certain assumptions. All right? Now, when I thought about building a financial plan, I'm still kind of thinking through this. Versus doing a financial plan for the entire store, part of me was thinking, I would like you to pick a classification of business and build a financial plan for that. Give me the trend and the information around it and what your strategy is going to be. I'd rather you guys hone in on one. You just giving me a total number for the store doesn't mean anything to me. I want you guys to think about, when you look at these classifications of business, which category of business do I want to go after? Or is there a category of business that I'm going to downtrend, and this is why? Okay? But the one thing I'm going to have to know, though, is what are going to be the sales for each of these classifications, because I still need to understand what that total looks like. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? Back there? Do I say yes? Do I say yes? Okay. All right. Now, the other thing, too, that I've given to you is you've got markdown rates, you've got turns, I've given you IMU and gross margin. And then I went ahead and did the same thing across the top here for the total store. So you have all of the components now in regards to the financials to help you build a plan. Okay? So what I've done is in the projects tab, you will see this is labeled as 2Ps and Cali's preseason plan part number 2. Now you have the additional information to help start building the financial plan. Okay? But there's lots of different components to the financial plan, so we're going to start talking about those. We're going to do a little refresher from buying one and building a financial plan. Okay? Any questions around this? We're good? All right. I like the smirks. I like the smirks. All right. Actually, I'm going to do this here. All right. So same thing. Under the 2Ps and Cali's hindsight information, you're going to see your sales and inventory information. All right, and we're going to start talking about sales and how do we forecast. All right. First and foremost, whenever we're building a financial plan, we always start with the sales piece. Okay, I've touched on that a few times. All right, so this goes back to, this is 2Ps and Cali's comp sales performance. We know what the last year numbers are. We know what the penetrations are by classification. All right, that's what you guys turned in to me this past week. All right, now, when you think about what steps do I take in the forecasting of sales, first and foremost, I always do my hindsight. I analyze past data, right? And we tried to leverage 2Ps. We actually tried to leverage 2Ps and Cali's here last week. We have some of the last year information. They kind of shared some of the things going on within the business. They will be traveling to market, and what I'm going to do is ask them to give us a little recap about some of the things they saw, some of the things they felt good about. So as you guys are doing your trend forecast piece of it, you'll have something to compare it to, okay? What are the emerging trends across classifications? One of the things we may see is when they do get back from their trip, they might say, wow, I was so surprised that there was so much going on in the shoe classification. Or I saw that there was so much going on in home. One of the things they talked about was the Anthropologie launch. You can actually see some of that already within the store. And we all know that that stuff is also priced at a higher price point, okay? One of the things they're going to have to be very careful of is because now you're teetering at a different price point than what's normal to the customer, you're going to have to make sure that you're managing your inventories and not getting overstocked, okay? So it's going to be very interesting to see over these next few weeks kind of what does that transition look like? How is the customer responding to that? So what are the emerging trends across the classifications? And that's something that you guys will do as you're working through the trends. You might find some things that are like glaring you in the face saying, you know what, this is what I have to go after, and this is why. Okay? Target customer. Who do they share the target customer is? Right? Most definitely an older customer, right? It's most definitely somebody who lives in San Marcos, who lives here all year round. It is not necessarily the college student. College student might go in there occasionally, but there was no doubt when I was there, it was much older women. They definitely had a clientele. And they also had a group of ladies that were coming in to do shopping across at the outlet mall. They actually had hit up 2Ps and Cali's first before they were going to the other side. Okay? Internal factors are going to affect your sales. Your pricing structure, your marketing, changes in your store hours. One of the things they talked about is now they're open on Sundays. That's going to impact sales. That should give them additional sales, right? Pricing, you guys mentioned a little bit too high. Are they priced too high? You know, if as you go into the store and you start to walk around and you start looking, seeing how many items of something is left, that's a good indicator to see if those higher price points are working or not, right? So if you go up to a rack and you have 6 blouses and those blouses are priced at $89, makes you wonder. But if you walk over to the other section and you have some tops that are priced $39 and you only have 2 left, then there's something around that price point structure. Okay? So as you think about your classifications, whichever one you decide to choose, you may want to go in and spend some time looking at the different pricing structures to see where they're valued at. Is there potential to go up or is there potential to go down? What does that look like? Okay? Marketing. You guys all brought up opportunities that they can do other things to market their business and market their brand. Make sure you guys have signed up for Facebook and Instagram. That's what they have, right? And if you see on Instagram, all they pretty much do is really showcase the people that work in the store and also Pam and Callie wearing the outfits that they sell. That's their marketing strategy. One of you guys as a group or as a team may come back and say, listen, I can plan that business up 10% if they just did this. If they took the time to develop, have influencers, have a college student do an ambassadorship or something to get more footsteps through the door. What could that look like? Those marketing tactics have an impact on sales. How you talk to the customer, the way that you talk to the customer. Is there a way to do something on Instagram or Facebook where there could be a feed that would link them to the outfit that they're wearing and say, hey, if you really like these items, buy them now. What would that entail? Okay? And one of the things with this from a strategic perspective, put your phone down. I'm watching you. One of the things from a strategic perspective is if you come up with a strategy that's bigger than just the classification itself, that's okay. I want you guys to think bigger. I want you to think about other opportunities, okay? And share that in your strategy. I won't take points away from you. I will add points to you because you thought of it at a higher level. Because one thing I don't want is a lot of little things that are going to be hard to track, hard to manage, and hard to determine if they're going to work or not. We need some bigger strategies to help drive those footsteps into the store, okay? External factors. Economic conditions. What's going on right now? Economically, what's going on right now? The virus, you're absolutely right. The stock market is tough because of what's going on. But also, what else is going on? What is Super Tuesday? Elections. That has a significant impact on the consumer, if you plan to buy or not. And now it's like you just got to wait it out. Consumers tend to become a little bit more cautious simply because of the fact they don't know what's going to happen, right? Maybe instead of going out, you'll stay home. Maybe instead of buying something new, you'll do with what you have, right?
Will we see that a lot more, especially in November, since that's when, like, probably not as many people buying for Christmas?
You'll see people still will buy, but maybe they won't. The average spend may not be what it was in previous years. Because to be honest with you, going back into this past Q4, we had about a 4% increase, which was pretty good. And they're still anticipating, anything that you read is still anticipating that it's still going to be, that retail is going to continue to grow. But now this virus has definitely caused a little bit of a hiccup in that. Yes?
I have a question. I noticed like this past year they extended like the Black Friday sales throughout all, like usually it's just that Black Friday and they just kind of go out the window, those sales, but they continued on until January. Do you know like what's the reason for that?
So the reason that they're starting promotions earlier or making them last longer is still simply to get you in the door. And and sometimes too, the thought process is, wow, that's such a good deal. Not only will I buy for a family member, I'll buy something for myself as well. But they have to be careful because you can't keep extending the same type of promotion because then that promotion gets stale. They have to keep looking for something else. We are still in a very highly promotional environment. There is no doubt about it. And even now, when you think about it, we're in the month of February. I've already seen ads talking about spring product already being 25, 30, 40, 50% off. Okay? The weather has been kind of challenging too, right? It's been hot and it's been cold. It's been hot and it's cold. And usually as we get ready into the month of March, March is usually a pretty big month because it is a 5-week month. March is usually a pretty big month because we have spring break. But we're just not seeing some of those tractions. And it's too early. Unfortunately, most companies haven't posted their February yet to kind of get a gauge around February comps to see how they did. you know. I know one of the things that a lot of businesses did is they tried to be cleaner coming out of Christmas. They probably pulled back in inventories. They're tightening their inventories, tightening their turns. Because we all know that more inventory doesn't mean more sales. So it's all about managing the inventory. Okay? Demographic trends, competitive conditions. So I think somebody mentioned that across the street, Centerpoint, they closed their doors. That can end up being a competitive challenge depending upon who decides to go in there. What if it's somebody that sells very similar product that looks like them, has the same level of customer service, then that's going to become an issue. But some of the competitors by far to look at is inside in the square. Who are some of those competitors? Near there, I know she mentions trends and traditions. Even though the product is different, it's all about who's getting the dollar. Okay? Maybe it's even going into trends and traditions or going into a store on the square and finding out, well, what are some of the things that they do? How do they market? Are there opportunities, right? You're always looking for the competitors because you can also learn from them and get some insight as far as your business overall. Okay? Are you sewing? Okay. So you can sew and learn at the same time. Oh, wow, it's pretty cool. All right. All right. These are all the things. Hey, anything goes nowadays, I'm telling you. It's very relaxing. Okay, I just want you to be relaxed so you can enjoy my class. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right? So these were all the things. So we've touched on all of these now. Okay? So review past sales, analyze changes in economic conditions, changes in sales potential for specific products or markets. You guys also may come back and say that whole kids piece of their business, that there might be more opportunity there than what they have. At one point, that piece dwindled and it came back again because they definitely had a lot of inventory to do the sales. Changes in marketing strategies, and then of course now we'll have the opportunity to forecast sales. So you and your team should be thinking about how are we going to plan our sales? What is that going to look like? What is it going to look like by classification? And do you guys see it being planned flat? Do you see some growth potential? And if so, where is that opportunity? Okay. So one of the other things that you're going to calculate is the percent change, right? So all retail brands look at the difference between what happened last year versus what happened this year and try to understand what that percent change is, right? So if I'm looking for the dollar amount planned increase or decrease, which you'll have to provide, it's planned sales minus last year is the dollar increase or decrease. Okay? So I think what I did is I made the assumption that they're going to increase their sales by 5%. That's my assumptions in here over these next few problems. So with that, I'm saying they're going to do $1,155,472 minus what they did last year. So I'm projecting over the 6 months, right? Because your financial plan is over 6 months, $55,022. So one of the things I have to do is I have to do a mental check. I have to think about, does the numbers make sense? So if I break it out, that would be an additional $9,091 in sales per month during the fall season. How did I do that? 55,022 divided by 6. That means I would have to do almost an additional $9,000 a month. Can I do that? Or another way to look at it is an additional $2,272 in sales per week during the fall season. So I take that number and I divide it by 4 on an average. So can I do another $2,200 a week to be able to achieve that additional $55,000 in sales for the season? It's a checkpoint. Is it realistic? And I just threw 5% out there, okay? But that's how you would go about, that's how you would determine what do I think that dollar increase is going to be, and then what do the other metrics look like? All right? So then the next thing I'm going to calculate is what's the percent change. You're going to calculate the percent change by month, by quarter, and then for the year. This year minus last year divided by last year. So I'm projecting $1,155,000 minus the $1,145,000 they did, divided by the $1,145,000. It tells me that my percent change was 5%. So when we go back and you look at the spreadsheet, and you can use this spreadsheet, of course, just to help, right? Oops, sorry about that. Okay. So here we go. This is my percent change that you're going to calculate by month for the quarter, by month for Q4, and for the entire year. Okay? This year minus last year divided by last year. Are we good so far? All right, good. All right, so there's my 5%. Okay, now, it's like a matter of well, how do you come up with what that dollar amount is going to be or whatever? So what you need to do is calculate your last year's sales and determine the percent increase or decrease. So that's what I did. I kind of said to myself, okay, last year, I'm going to say times 5%. That gave me the number. I add the two together, and there's my total. Okay? So depending upon the financials that you have and the information that you have, there's lots of different ways that you can determine what the sales are going to be. All right? Now, once you guys determine your sales, the next thing you're going to do is determine your inventory. Okay? What the flow of inventory is going to look like, where the peaks are going to be depending upon sales. Now remember, you always need the current month's inventories to do next month's sales. Because think about flow. Okay? Is there opportunity for them to flow product better? Is there an opportunity that it doesn't have to be every week? Maybe it's every other week. What does that look like? Okay? And you got to take that into account. So after sales are planned, the amount of inventory needs to be planned for either the BOM or the EOM. What's BOM stand for? What's end of month stand for? EOM. I got myself on that. What's EOM stand for? End of month. Very good. Now, differences will always exist in planning of basic versus fashion assortments. Why do we think basics needs to be planned first? Why do you plan your basics first? That's your core. That's my guarantee. I know that customer's coming in and buying it. Question for you all. Based upon what Pam and Callie said last week, what would be considered one of their basic items? The car sense. That would be considered a basic. If you go into the store, there is a presentation. All the different colors are there. If they're selling 50,000 units, they're selling 50,000 units over a year. It's something they don't have to get out of. They just refresh it whenever they need to. But there's probably some other basics or core in there as well. They have some black pants that they carry all year round. You look at some of the Kendra jewelry. Some of that Kendra is like a basic because it's just the basic silhouette. So they do carry some of those basics. They have camis, gray, black, and white. There is a basic piece of the business as well. So you're absolutely right. You plan that piece first because you have to protect that inventory because that's your money maker. You bring it in, you don't have to mark it down, all right, and it's guaranteed. Okay? Now, turnover. As you guys pointed out, turnover is how fast something sells. Okay? The higher the turn, the faster the turn, the better, right? That means the customer's responding to it. The lower the turn, what most likely do you have to do? If you have a low turn on something, what are you going to have to do? Say it louder, what? Mark down. When it's not working, you're going to have to mark it down. Okay? Now, turnover is also going to vary by type and the type of merchandise. And you saw that in the recap that I showed you. The turnovers were different by the different classifications. Okay? Sometimes tops will turn faster than bottoms because they're a little bit easier. If you think about it, most people have 2 or 3 tops to 1 bottom. So tops will naturally turn faster. Very likely we saw when we were looking at the accessories piece of it, in some cases we turned out of business because we were turning too quick. We didn't have enough. And it can also vary by price. Perfect example is the turn on those $6 car cents could possibly be very high. It's a good price point. They have a large assortment and probably people are buying more than just one. Okay? Now, fashion merchandise, the fashion piece of it should turn faster. Basics should be slower. Turnover stimulates sales by presenting fresh merchandise to the customer. So one of the things that they pointed and they talked about is they deliver new fresh product almost every day. They have a constant repeat customer. There's customers who come back 2 or 3 times a week. So them having that new fresh flow and that consistent flow matters. They've already determined that that's what their customer's looking for. Okay? A faster turn also reduces markdowns by keeping the flow of new goods constant. When I walked their floor, I didn't see a lot of markdowns. I didn't. Okay? So, but kind of makes sense because right now you're at the start of the spring season. They did a very good job of liquidating themselves. I didn't see a lot of holiday product, which I probably would still see in some retail brands. I didn't see sweaters or some of these heavy things. It wasn't there. But do you know what retail brands can do at the end of the season if they want to start clean and they don't want to have all that excess inventory? What do? Anybody has an idea?
Give it to Ross.
Give it to Ross. Here, Ross, take it. There you go. Well, ideally, yes. So there's different ways of doing it, though. Ross, for the most part, likes to buy from vendors. They don't like to necessarily take the inventory from another store because you're going to be broken. It's going to be piecemealed. And they still like to buy assortments. Well, when they buy their assortments, maybe they can't take it to the entire chain, but maybe they're buying their assortment for half the chain. All right? It's still about making a presentation to a certain extent. So what happens is, in the case of 2Ps and Callies, you can donate. So you can donate it to the women's shelter. You could donate that product and they get tax write-off. The other thing you can do is sell the product to jobbers. Jobbers are definitely available. You get pennies on the dollar for the inventory, but sometimes that pennies on the dollar is worth more than going onto the floor right now or walking 2Ps and Callie's floor and seeing a lot of holiday decor and heavy sweaters and jackets and things like that. Right? Because to the customer, that's an eyesore. I don't like to see that. I'm ready to move into spring. I'm ready to transition. I don't want to be seeing holiday product anymore. I saw holiday back in September, didn't I? Because everyone's transitioning their floor sooner. Okay? The lower cost of goods sold as the open to buy position permits the buyer to take advantage of special prices and offerings. So it's a little bit different on how 2Ps and Callies run their business. They don't necessarily have an open to buy. They know what their cost purchases are. They know what they're bringing in. But I think that's one of the things that it's very important to understand is having an open to buy for every single classification of business. So if one is downtrending and one is uptrending, you know how to shift your dollars and you know what to go back in and buy. Okay? So those are all the things that you take into consideration when you think about turn. And you guys will have to calculate turn. All right? Now, the thing that's going to be a little bit different is I'm going to be providing you the turn. I'm not providing you the stock to sales ratio by month. I'm providing you the turn because I'm making the assumption that there's a certain amount of basic inventory within their product mix, which is pretty standard within the retail industry. So in order to figure out turnover, you're going to take your net sales for the period and divide it by your average stock. So if my sales were $2 million in the infants department and my average retail stock was $500,000, my turn for the season is a 4. It's a pretty good turn. Okay? Another way you can do it is you can calculate your average stock when your planned sales and your turnover are known. So you know what the turnover rate was for last year. You know what the sales are for last year. You can use that same turn, or you may challenge yourself to turn faster or slower. Okay? So that is equal to planned sales divided by turnover rate. So the women's slipper department had planned sales of $2 million with a stock turn goal of 2.5. What should be the average stock carried for the period under consideration? $2 million divided by 2.5 is equal to $800,000. All right? So these are all the financial metrics that you're going to have to start working on your financial plan. All right. So in order to start figuring out your inventories, you got to start with your beginning of month, your BOMs. What is that going to look like? We're going to make the assumption that a certain amount of basic stock is needed on a monthly basis. And like we said, we got to protect that piece of it. You need to know what your average inventory levels derive from sales and turn. So let's look at what information we do know. Last year's sales were $1,145,000. Our turn was 3.25. Average inventory is equal to $1,001,000 divided by 3.25. That means their average inventory over the season was about $338,000. My average turn. Okay? So that information is provided. So in order for me, yes?
So on that number, how much the inventory is worth while it's paid, or it's actually for the sold?
No, it's the amount of inventory I carried through that in 6 months. What was that average inventory that I always had on my floor at any given time? Okay? All right. So in order for you to calculate your BOMs, there's going to be multiple steps here. All right. So I'm using last year information to come up with all of this. You guys are going to have to use what your new plan numbers are going to be. So first and foremost, these were all my sales. For July, I did 132,000, August 154, and so on and so forth. In order for me to figure out what my average monthly sales are, I'm going to take my total sales divided by the months in the period. How many months are in a season? Huh? How many months in a season?
4, 3.
No. Season.
Oh, 3.
Let's start again. How many months are in a quarter?
1.
How many of you took my buying class and are telling me 4 months in a quarter? How many months in a quarter?
3.
How many months in a season?
6.
How many months in a year?
12.
Okay. How many weeks in a year?
52.
How many weeks in a season?
26.
Half of that. There you go. Oh. Whew. Man, that was a rough one. All right. So you have 6 months. You have 6 months within a season. So remember, your season is your spring season, and then you have your fall season. Okay? You guys are projecting the fall 2020 season, so you have 6 months within it. One of the things, remember, that we touched on is they're not using the 454 fiscal calendar. They're using a regular calendar year. Okay? So that means they end in December. December 31st is their last day. While most retail brands, because they use a fiscal calendar, will actually have January as part of that 6-month season for them. So they definitely do things a little bit differently. So based upon last year, their average monthly sales were about $183,000. Average monthly sales. Okay? So because I have that information, if I need to figure out how much, I need to understand how much basic stock I'm going to carry to start calculating my BOMs. My average inventory of $338,000 minus my average monthly sales is $155,000. So what I'm saying is, at any given time, I was carrying $155,000 worth of basic stock. Meaning, I was carrying those candle scents, I was carrying maybe some of my black leggings, I was maybe carrying some of my jewelry from Kendra Scott. That was some of those core basics. Okay? So I'm protecting this piece of it. In order for me now to start calculating my BOM, I'm going to add my basic stock to my monthly planned sales number for each month. So, yes?
Is that number based off of retail or is that cost?
Anytime you do financial planning, it's based off of retail.
Okay.
Whatever the customer's paying for, that's how you plan your business, is based off of retail. Okay? So, if I wanted to figure out what my July BOM is, I'm going to take my July sales plus my basic stock, I'm going to add them together, and this is going to be my July BOM. If I'm looking for my August sales, I'm going to take August sales plus this basic stock number, and that will be my August BOM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that basic stock number of 155,000, and I'm going to add it to every single month to figure out what my BOM is going to be. Okay? BOM. Now, EOM is the other component that you're going to need to know. Okay? The EOM stock for a particular month is the same as the BOM stock for the following month. Does that make sense? So for example, if 230,000 is the EOM stock for July, the same figure is the BOM stock for August. What I ended with is what I'm starting with the following month. And if you guys remember when we did it in buying one, it was kind of like that diagonal that went through, that you can see what you end with is what you begin with. Now, the only thing though to remember is that when we think about the month of December, how do I calculate what my EOM is going to be for the month of December? I still need to calculate that. To find the EOM inventory for December, it's going to be equal to the total sales will be divided by your stock turn, which is equal to your average inventory. So what you're doing is that December EOM is going to be your average inventory for the season. Are you okay? Are you sure? It's a lot. There's a lot that goes into the financial planning process. That's why we're doing this in stages, okay? But the sales forecasting piece is pretty straightforward. And then the inventory, I've given you the framework. And everything I did is I used the last year numbers. So you can go back and reference it to be able to calculate the last year numbers, okay? First part of the process is you guys need to start thinking about how are you going to forecast your sales. You can do it many different ways. You can look at each classification and figure out, okay, how am I going to plan it? Sum them up, see what does that increase look like and how does that tie back to the total. You might just say in general, this is where I think I need to be, and then back into it by the different classifications. And then once you have your totals, you figure out your percentages by month, right? And a lot of that is going to tie back to this. Realistically, do we think that there's going to be a lot of shifts in this based upon what she told us? Maybe not. What's the one thing that maybe I would look at or possibly revisit based upon some of the comments that she made in regards to her deliveries, based upon some of the challenges that we might experience of product coming from China? What might I possibly do? Maybe in Q4 especially. Where do you think what could be possibly a little bit different in Q4? Well, when I projected 5%, I just came up with 5% here. I didn't even take it down to this level yet. But when you're thinking about your percent by month, I might actually have some opportunity to do more sales in November than December. So all of a sudden, if I'm bringing in more inventory here now, that inventory, I need to drive the sales here. I can't have this October inventory sit around and wait until December for somebody to buy it. That means it could be on the floor for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And after that, if I'm that repeat customer, it's going to start to look stale to me. Right? So maybe because of what's going on, one of your recommendations will be to bring the inventory in a little bit earlier. Maybe it will be to hold some of it in the back until the timing is right. Maybe part of it will be, you know what, I'm going to take some of those sales from December and shift them into November because now I'm going to have that excess inventory on my floor. You have to predict that once that inventory comes in that you're going to do the sales. You have to have confidence in when you build this financial plan that, hey, if that's my strategy and that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to generate sales off of it. Okay? And then the other piece of it, what I will do this week is I will be putting the financial template in there so you guys can start playing with it. Okay? You can actually start forecasting your sales and looking at your inventories to see if things make sense. Okay? But we're going to do this in stages. I don't want to do it all at one time. I want us to do this in stages to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with the components of it. Okay? Any questions? Does everybody understand what needs to get done? Thumbs up back there. That's a good sign. Okay? All right. Remember, think outside the box. Just because they do something now doesn't mean they have to do it again. Think about things that could be different. Okay? And to be honest with you, they want to hear your feedback. They want to hear your thoughts. They want to hear your recommendations. Even though you may not necessarily be the target consumer, you guys do have a lot of insight into what other brands are doing. I'm sorry, say again? Eventually, right? If you decide to stay in the San Marcos area, or if you ever come back to San Marcos, yes, you will eventually become. They want to start talking to you now. They don't want to wait till later. Say again? Really, what's your secret? Share it with me now. Young forever. You got to stay young, that's for sure. We have to stay young.
Are we going to present in front of them?
I'm going to try to do that, yes. Mm-hmm. That you would present your ideas in front of them, yes. What else? What else? All right. Take a moment to absorb, okay? Don't be afraid to come to class, ask questions about it, all right? If you ever, as a group, want to come and meet and talk with me one-on-one, or if we pick a class session where we say, hey, today's the day where we want to share with me, meaning me, the professor, some of the ideas that we have, I can go around to each of the groups and we could talk through that, all right? So if you have some ideas around how you want to do that, more than open to it. All right. All right, so that takes care of that piece of it. All right, so we have 1 week next week, right before spring break. So next week, you're going to take your midterm exam. Yay!
That's the thing, like spring break is like, yay, spring break, and you see the storm. Right.
All right, so we're going to talk through some of this. All right. Midterm. You're going to take it here in class. It's going to be done through tracks, kind of like we've done in buying one. Okay? Not proctored. It will be here. Your proctor is actually going to be Olivia because I can't be in class next week. All right? The exam is worth 100 points, and it's a combination of multiple choice, true or false questions, short answers, chapters 1 to 3, 5, and 7. You will complete financial problems. So at the start of the semester, remember the financial problems we went through? I went back and I referenced all the other chapters, and we've touched on all the financial metrics that you would have watched in lecture. Okay? But I'm going to share some of them with you anyway as a heads up. Okay? Because I like to share, right? All right. Here within each of the chapters is some key bullet points. And to be honest with you guys, the stuff that's here, it's very standard. You guys have been ingrained in all different facets of the retail industry and all the courses you've taken. Some of this stuff is it's just standard knowledge of understanding what retail is all about. Okay? So here I provide for you from each of the chapters, what are some of the important things to know about? Like, many of you guys have already touched on and know about demographic, geographic, psychographic behaviors, right? We've talked about that. If you've taken enterprise development, it's been part of building your business plan. It's the same thing. So here's a little cheat sheet that provides all that information to you. Okay? Please go through that, and all this information is in the PowerPoint presentations and in the lecture. So, also, make sure you know how to calculate cumulative markup percentage. Make sure you know how to calculate stock to sales, which we just talked about just a few minutes ago, and stock turnover. Now, the big one that I want to see, and we'll go through it right now, is do you guys remember the P&L statement?
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
That took me forever to do.
Huh? So are we feeling confident that we can do a P&L statement?
Confident is a strength.
Yes? We're feeling, all right, so, okay. All right. So let's do this first and foremost. How do we set up you have to do a P&L. I'm telling you right now. You got to do a P&L. All right? So can anybody remember how to set up the P&L statement?
First you have your cash side and your...
Well, we're going to have our dollars and we have our percentage. Okay? What's first? Okay, oh, good. Net sales. Then what do we do? What do we minus from the net sales? Oh, yeah, baby. Here we go. Net sales minus cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold. Oops. Let me redo this. COGS. Let me just do COGS. Cost of goods sold equals what?
Gross margin.
Oh, yeah. All right. Minus what? Expenses. And when we minus expenses, what does that equal? Profit or loss. Hey, guys, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. All right. So, real quick, let me do this. All right, we're going to go through one to see how confident everybody is in it.
Can we use our index card thingy in the test?
Is it open? No.
No, it's not open note. I'll let you use your formula books if you have them.
That's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yes, you can bring those. Okay, so let's do this real. Okay, do we want to start off easy and then do a harder one?
Just rip the band.
Or do you want to rip the band off and go for it right now? All right, here we go. Gross sales are 583,260. Customer returns and allowances is 8.65%. COGS, I don't know why I can't do that one, 48.35. And expenses are 251,870. All right. Walk me through it. What do we do first? Okay, so, okay, well, okay. Mia, I saw you raise your hand. You got something for me? What do you want to? Okay. Now, where do this isn't even in here. So where does it go? Up here? So what goes up here? Okay. All right. There we go. So we're going to put in what we do know, right? All right. We're going to put in what we know. So we know gross sales are 583,260. We know customer returns are 8.65. What percent is net sales? 100. Good job. All right. I know my COGS are 48.35. And I know that my expenses are 251,870. All right. So Mia, you made the comment that in order for us to figure out customer returns and allowances to get the dollar amount, what do? And what am I multiplying? Go ahead. Okay, so 583,260 times 8.65% is going to be equal to 50,452. Nicely done. What's next? Subtract 583,260 minus the 50,452. I get 532,808. Now what? Multiply what by 48.35? So you're telling me I have to take 532,808 and multiply it by 48.35? And that's going to give me the dollar amount? Okay, the dollar amount of COGS. Is he right? Yes. Okay, like the confidence. All right, that gives me 257,613. Then what? Subtract net sales from cost of goods sold to get gross margin? All right, I get 275,195. What's next? Subtract what? So 100 minus 48.35 is what? 5165, I believe. Now what? I got to figure out this. How do I figure out this?
Expense dollars divided by
Expense dollars what? So whenever I'm looking for my percentages, don't I always divide into net sales? So 251,870 divided into my net sales, and hold on, I got to find the number, is 47.27. Then what? What's next? Subtract 275 from 251. I get 23,325. 51.65 minus 47.27, 4.38. Did I have a profit or a loss?
Loss.
Profit.
Where'd you get loss from? You just wanted to say loss.
No, because I thought it was like from the GM, since we subtracted it. Oh, I thought that was a 1.5.
Okay, so it is a profit, right? If this number had been negative, it would have been a loss. But because the numbers are positive, it's a profit. You'll have to do a P&L. Easy. You want to do another one?
Yes.
Who said no? Man, you guys are a rough crowd today, man. Really rough. I'm not feeling the love today. All right, let's see. All right. Here, I'm going to give you one more to do. Here. Gross margin is 130,000. Expenses is 125,000. And profit is 2%. Calculate the P&L for me. By yourselves, yeah, how about that? Come on. See if everybody can get it right. I'm watching. It's all in here, huh? All in the noggin? I expect everybody to do very, very well on this exam. It's worth 100 points. Oh my goodness. No. Shoot higher than that, please. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I want all A's.
91.
I'll take a 91.
That's the best you'll get out of me.
Oh, since when? Since when? Since you're in a different mindset? Since
4 exams in 1 week, that's gonna be more than
Man, I used to not like my teachers when I had 4 exams in 1 week.
I got good professors.
Do you need a little refresher on your formula book? Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh wait, no, yeah. It is, 'cause she gave it.
See how those formula books come in handy? Even after you graduate, I still know people who have their formula books and they keep them in their desks at work, especially if they're on the buying side or the planning side.
We need net sales.
If you guys want to work together, you can too, if it helps. Come on. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a fun exercise. You mean to tell me you forgot that much from buying one?
I don't remember ever doing it with only that information.
So what's a little bit different here? Is I've given you profit, right? you got to figure out net sales, right? If you know, okay.
If you know the 2%, then you should be able to multiply that. Multiply that by.
All right. All right. You want to do this together? Okay, geez, Louise. Man, what a rough crowd today. All right. So what do we do first? We always put in what we know. 130,000. We know expenses are 125,000. And we know that profit is 2%. Oops, sorry, yes. Okay. So I can do this really quick, right? 130 minus 125, it gives me 5,000. If I know my profit dollars and my profit percent, can I calculate my net sales?
Yes.
Yes, you can. And how do we do that?
You multiply.
Divided by 2%.
The-
0.02. Your
5,000 divided by the 2% is going to give you 250,000. If you know your profit dollars and your profit percentage, you can calculate your net sales. You guys want to take it from here? Now you got it? Oh, okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I should put that in the formula book. Just so you guys know, the midterm study guide is at the end of chapter 7. See right there? So when you guys are looking, that's where it's at. Alrighty, what do I do next? If I know net sales and I know gross margin, can I figure out cost of goods sold?
hell yeah.
Hell, oh man, she's really passionate about this one. All right, so 250 minus the 130 would give me my cost of goods sold, right? All right, what percent is net sales? Okay. How do I find the rest? What do I do? So divide 120,000 into 250? You're absolutely right. I get 48%. How do I figure out what the gross margin is? 100 minus 48 is 52. What can I naturally figure this out to be? Thank you very much. You will have a P&L on your question. What are some things that I can do within the P&L? Like if I wanted to make more of a profit, what could I possibly do? What could I do to increase this profit percent from 2% to say 3% or 4%? What are some of the things that I can do?
Decrease your expenses.
Okay, I could decrease my expenses for sure. And what are considered my expenses in a retail store? What are my retail expenses that I can cut back on? If I'm the store manager, you said labor, what else? What else can you cut back from expenses? What if you're the buyer in a corporate environment? What can you do to cut expense? Less travel, right? Maybe I don't fill the position that I've had open for a long period of time, right? Expense cost-cutting measures. I have to think about that. It could be something as easy as not letting people to print color printers. Everything has to be black and white. Colored ink is very, very expensive, right? There's definitely cost-cutting measures. What else could you do? What else can you do? What can I do with my cost of goods sold? Negotiate. And negotiate what? Right? I can get a better cost of goods sold by negotiating better pricing, get better IMU on the front end, right? Okay. What else? What else impacts this gross margin, or even net sales? Right? I need to understand why the customer is returning. Right? What's going on? We usually get that question whenever we return something. The sales associate always asks you, well, why are you returning it? I'm making sure there's no quality issues. Maybe it's pricing issues, that type of thing. What else has an effect on gross margin?
Markdown.
Thank you very much. Markdowns. Right? I got to take my markdowns. Maybe I took too many markdowns this past season. Maybe I brought in the wrong mix of product. Maybe I didn't have enough basic inventory. Right? Maybe I didn't plan my basic inventory well enough, and as a result of it, I missed out on some sales. I had more fashion. As a result of it, I had to take more markdowns. So make sure you also know what are some of the things that you can do within a P&L to improve it, to make it better. Those were all good examples. Okay? Also, too, sometimes with net sales, the way you can drive additional net sales is by promoting. Right? It's about letting the customer know you have the product. Letting them know what you're trying to sell, what those big hot items or key items are for the season. All of that has an impact on your P&L. All right, so just to recap, I'm going to go ahead and be putting in the financial template for you guys to start being able to build the financial plan. You can start working on your sales. You can start working on your inventory. Okay? And then once you guys have done that, we can start having conversations if you want to do it individually or within your groups. Next week, you'll have your test. It's your midterm exam worth 100 points. You'll come in here, sit down, and the assessment will be ready to go at exactly at 12:30. You'll have from 12:30 to 1:50 to take the test. Bring your formula books. I've already told you some of the key things that you need to know from a formula perspective. If you don't have your formula book, I do recommend, why don't you go back into these 7 chapters? There's formulas within those chapters. Write them down on index cards so you do have it. So you definitely have a source of information there to help you.